anyway, I thought you guys might, since I talked so much about this and walked you through that, you might want to see what the job was like. So Rich and I were talking out here. This is where I started interviewing him. We were looking inside before the doors were on. You're looking inside the utility room, and the utility room is where we get our new 200 amp panel. It goes there. That's service entry for that. Gas and water service entries are all there too. I had to design all that. That wasn't even shown on the plans. Had to do all kinds of fun stuff. I'll tell you, when we get into plumbing, which is really soon, I will show you some stuff about this house. But like, well, I'll tell you right now, since I'm on it, that this house had existing plumbing. So before this addition, right, there was a big clean out right here. You know what a clean out is? What's clean out, Frank?
It's kind of a threaded ABS plug that goes into the waste part of your plumbing.
Clean outs have a plug, but a clean out is a way to get into your waste to snake it. And they're required on all your waste. And by the way, I'll tell you right now, 4 things you need to know about plumbing: water waste vent and shit rolls downhill 1/4 inch to a foot. That's all you ever need to know about plumbing. If you know those 4 things, you can be a plumber too. So waste needs to be snaked occasionally for roots and other things that happen in your main waste, where not just your sewage goes to, but your showers and your, gray water, all that stuff goes in your waste. And we had a big clean out right here. Yeah, clay pipe cleanup. So we knew where the sewer was, and the cleanout was just opposite this existing bathroom. So I figured that everything came across the building from the laundry site here, this way, and the kitchen sink this way. It came straight across, bathroom here. Everything went under the slab. All this waste went under the slab and came out. And the bathroom did too. And I figured everything tied in right outside there. That's what I figured. And at one point early on, I told the owner, hey, I want to replumb the whole house, not just because I knew we had to do a new lateral. So I knew from here, we had to do a new lateral all the way to the street. I knew we were going to do that. We were required to do that by the county. But she wanted to leave the existing waste alone, and I wanted to change it out completely. So we left it alone because it was working. When we tore up the house, it was working, right? But I didn't really know where it went. So in the middle of the job, we had a mainline waste, because when we unstacked the vents, you have to stack the vents. So when you get your rough plumbing in, you have to fill up all the plumbing, the waste, and part of the waste system is the venting. All waste has to be, so all plumbing fixtures need water waste vent. You cannot have a plumbing fixture without water waste vent. Every waste has to be vented. Okay, so those are you have to have that. So we stack the vents because you have to fill them all the way up till they spill, and then you have to leave them overnight. And then the inspector has to see that your waste system is holding. And it's not ever under pressure any more than the stacking of the vents. Your water system's under pressure, your gas is under pressure, but your waste, there's no pressure. It just shouldn't mean anything. It just should be a smooth flow. So we had a blockage because our vents weren't draining. And I get camera down there, and we just, we couldn't get anywhere. The pipes were just filled with water. So from the kitchen, I cambered, and we traced. He has a locator, right? When you're cameraing a line, he also has, the plumber has another tool that he can locate where the end of his camera is. So he can spray exactly where it is, and he can tell me how far down it was. So I knew right where the blockage was, and it was right under the slab. It was a blockage. I couldn't tell what the heck it was, and I could not figure out. I couldn't find where the waste left the building. It didn't happen here where it was supposed to. And as it turned out, all the waste went and picked up the bathroom. All this waste went this way, and then it left the building and went to the back of the building. The sewer's on the street. So why in the heck it went to the back of the building and then turned left and then picked up this long lateral and then went down with a clean out somewhere here. We just had to keep digging along that pipe until we found something that came into it, right? So picture the house here, this clean out, obviously heading to the street, the sewer with the clean out. We dug down, exposed it, and then started digging backwards, trying to find where the house entered it. And we found it way back here on the outside of the old house, but adjacent to the new footing and foundation. And as it turned out, the guys, when they poured the footing was so deep, it was a 30-inch deep footing because there was no soils report. If you have no soils report, you have to go 30 inches deep minimum, 30-inch deep footing, and then you don't require a soils report. That was deep enough that they actually busted the top of my clay waste pipe and filled it full of concrete. So it was concrete all the way back up into under the slab and concrete this way. Jordan Kinney said, no, we didn't say. And I looked at I never saw it. So it must have been just right at that, it was a perfect storm, really. So as much of a bummer as that was, as it turned out, I was really stoked about it because it means I got to go run new waste. Now, not stoked because I get to spend their money, but because, God, there's no stone unturned. We're doing all this work, new roof, new finishes, new drywall, new windows, new everything, and you're going to leave this old galvanized under the slab waste? No, it's a bad idea. And she wouldn't buy it when it was optional, and now it's not optional, so we got to do it. So what we did was we stubbed all new waste for the new laundry here, right? We stubbed out, and then we came and picked up the kitchen, all new waste coming out of the wall here, and we brought that straight on down to here, to right there, and then we did an 1/8 bend and went this way and picked up the new lateral, picked up everything, and then took everything to the street. So it all worked out. It all worked out. We got all new waste, all new ABS. And so, waste, their clay pipe is okay, but it is susceptible to roots and everything else. But Orangeburg and Formica, not that good. They deteriorate. The old waste pipe materials were nowhere near as good as ABS plastic, because ABS plastic doesn't go away. It stays slick and it doesn't rust and it doesn't corrode. And when you glue those joints, roots don't get in them. That's just that beast. It's the way to go. You want to plumb an ABS, especially your waste. And that's what we did. And then we had and I'll tell you at some point, because I'll refer back to this plan, that what we had to do in here, because the whole, basically the lot in the house set lower than the street by about 1 foot. So used to be all your site water, roof water, had to be captured, downspouts, and then down in hard pipe to daylight off property. In the last few years, that's changed. They being the county and city of Santa Barbara, they want you to keep all your site water on the site to recharge the aquifer. You don't want it going down the street and into the storm drains. They want it on the site. So consequently, permeable pavers are huge, right? So no more concrete driveways, permeable pavers. So you can drive on them, but they're permeable. So water gets on them. No. Now, I didn't want to do any sumps because I was thinking about initially getting this water off property until somebody finally clued me in the 6 years I hadn't been doing general contracting, that it's changed now. Now we want to keep site water. So what I did was I designed, basically by the seat of my pants, a giant, I made the whole driveway a catch basin of gravel. She wanted gravel everywhere. So we put in French type drains and we made this whole thing we excavated down, I think 14 inches, and we put back in like 6 inches of 3-inch crushed rock, and then a few inches of 2-inch crushed rock, and then 3/4 crushed rock, and then ultimately a 1 inch of 3/8 pea gravel, half Hanley or 60% Hanley gold and 40% pea gravel, washed pea gravel, for a finished look for her. But what we made is we made a big collection basin where water could go and disperse. It was more like a dispersion basin. So there's all these nooks and crannies that water could go and get down to groundwater and then go. So far, so good. It's worked really well. I know some of that was unintelligible, but
Did they plant around it at all, or?
well, you have to see it. There's a hedgerow and then a big olive tree, a couple of big olive trees.
Right.
Yeah, they've got some plantings. But yeah, plantings and just gravel. She just wanted gravel everywhere. She's really interesting. I really, really like her. I had a blast working with her. She's got excellent taste, just an absolute sweetheart of a person. And her husband's a super nice guy and an incredible golfer. And I hope they watch my YouTube channel so they can get how good I plug them. But
When you say Henley gold, are you talking about just the California gold kind of gravel? That's like
yeah, Hanley gold, California gold, they're pretty much synonymous.
All right.
Gravel. It's a gold colored gravel in 3/8 typically. But there's our roof plan. And we did some interesting modifications. So I pretty much had to kind of design as you go in some ways, like, well, this is the kitchen along the driveway, right? Where is it? That's not it. That's it. So she wanted another window. So we put 3 windows on that side. But some of the things required on plans are elevations, north, south, east, west, just like that. That has to be on a plan. Now, and that's pretty important because it's the only place you're going to find out a few things like the height of that ridge, your plate line right there, your plate line, what your gables do, height of your doors and windows, all kinds of things you need, right? This is the only place you show your plate height. You don't see it on floor plans. You won't see it anywhere unless you have a complete section of through walls, which in some cases you should. I like those on plans, but this showing plate height is pretty important. And then this shows, what the roof does and what the pitches are. And then it also tells you about added venting, about how much venting per square feet you have to have. Now, we had to have a bunch of vents because we didn't have to vent our volume spaces, but we had to vent our unconditioned spaces where we had attics. And rather than show a bunch of dormer vents, we did an attic vent, a ridge vent. So the ridge acts as a vent. It's got honeycomb, sticks up a little higher, and that we got the square inches that we needed to vent our roof, because you have to vent your unconditioned attics. Have to. You have to vent them at either end if it's a gable, or if you want to get air passing through them, and then you have to vent them out too. And it's really important to keep the differences between ambient outside temperature and the inside conditioned temperature not be so radical of a change. You get, especially attics really heat up. You got to have a place, and that's what those vents in the roof are, so that heat to dissipate and go, and then the gable end vents are to move air through there to circulate dead air. And then we had to do stuff like, because there's nothing shown, for insulation. What they show on the boilerplate is standard roof insulation, like a R30 or something like that. We can't do that here because we're showing all the way up. We're showing the bottom of the 2x4 rafters, the sheeting on top of that, all the way. We're not covering anything. And because we're leaving these trusses, which you saw the pictures of those site built trusses that were all stained, we couldn't skin the bottom of the rafters because they're just we'd have to cut around way too many of these, because there's connections every 2 feet on these trusses. So we had to insulate above. So we had to use a rigid insulation. We had to get an insulation that would conform to get the R value we needed. And so we had to, we did extra sheeting on top, and then we put this 2.5 inch or 3.5 inches insulation, which gave us the R value. And we had to build 2x4 on end nailing on the roof to drop in the insulation panel. So we had nailing, and then plywood on top of that, and then the roof on top of that, the metal roof on top of that, which is a 17-inch standing seam roof. And then as we go along in classes, you'll see more and more. Well, there's all the roof pitches. And I'm spending some time on this, but I wanted you to get a sense of the site and the plan, and then we get out of the meat of it. We get into some details, which that detail never happened. I don't know why that's there. That detail never happened.
Did you have to shore all those trusses in order to get that beam up in the back? Did you have to
Yeah, we just had to build a wall all the way across.
Yeah.
Because the trusses ran lengthened and ran and set on that wall. So we just built a temporary wall and removed that wall and then put in the post and beam and all that stuff. The footers were already there, and then took away the temporary wall, hung all the ends of the trusses. And I think you might show a detail, and this is actually more like what we did. This is an actual detail, this one here. But even then we modified it because she wanted that, she didn't want that space. And she wanted as narrow, she didn't even want a fascia. So I had to have the framers rip off the fascia and then rip it down to make it even narrower. See what else we got here. So then again, green building code stuff, a bunch of boilerplate stuff, and then we should start getting into engineering here. No, a bunch more mandatory measures, water efficiency, material conservation. I mean, it gives me a stiff neck just thinking about all the stuff that they have asked us to conform to. Now, this is boilerplate, and it has to do with how you use steel and footings, how to bend steel and what's acceptable. And again, pretty much all boilerplate. Now we should be getting into, that's S1, so that's boilerplate. Now we get into some actual details. So these are the actual details of what they wanted us to do, tying into the existing footing with the new slab. All these are actually real details that we actually used. And then you see, we start getting, this is where our foundation plan is. In the foundation plan, you have these things like, see that P1? See that? See all the triangles, P1, see the P3 there? Everybody see that? Mm-hmm. So the triangles, P1, right? And the HDs, did Jim tell you all about those? When you guys went over the foundation stuff? HDs are your hold downs, and they're rampant. There are lots of them in every foundation. And they have an anchor bolt that's an S shape that goes deep into your foundation, that's poured into concrete, and then it has threaded 5/8 bolt sticking up, and that's what that gets an HD. It gets a metal, fabricated metal device that's screwed to these a couple of studs together, or a 4x4 or a 4x6. It'll call it out, and it basically ties that part of the building wall to the foundation really well. And the whole idea is that if you get in an earthquake and your house starts jumping around, that it won't jump off the foundation. That's what the HDs do. And there's what they look like, right? And then these stabs go all the way down, big stabs. And then these guys are they're screwed with SDS screws, really gnarly. It drives itself screwed with an impact driver. into the posts, right? And it shows you edge nailing, and then the P's, all the triangle, the diamonds, those are all for your shear walls. So all your walls are sheeted, but some of your walls, interior and exterior, are considered shear walls. And they shear and rack the building. Again, it's for seismic and keep your building from collapsing. And they're very specific, and they're looked at by inspectors specifically, and they're almost always called out on your plan as needing a special inspection, just like your hold downs do. So your foundation hold downs require a special inspection, and all the nailing, basically all your straps, hold downs, and builder's hardware are going to need to be inspected and signed off that they're there and seen by a special inspector, not a county or city building inspector, but somebody you pay, like Rusty at Coast Valley or Pacific Materials Lab, or Ron Pike, Pacific Materials Lab. Those are pretty much the two guys that do it. There's other guys that do it, but those are the two companies that are mostly used around here, and they have to sign off that your shear is done properly per plan. And per plan is how many feet of shear there is. Now, the whole building is sheeted with the same stuff that you shear with. The shear has to be a certain type of material, and it has to have the stamps outside where you can read them. And then it has to have edge nailing and field nailing per spec. So the edge nailing, EN, is usually anywhere from 4 to 6 inches all the way to 12, but usually 4 to 6 to 8 inches on the edge nailing, and then field nailing is anywhere from 4 to 8 or 12, but it's very specific. But if your field nailing says 8-inch field nailing, and your inspector comes up and starts seeing stuff like that on your nails, you won't pass it. They are definitely looking for stuff like that. So it's very specific in how it can be done. And now it's got to be time for a break. It is. We went a solid hour. So take a 15-minute break. I have 10 o'clock, come back at 10:15. I'll set this to 10 o'clock. So we can look at this. So Alex, we'll see you back. Hey, 10:15.
All right. See you back in 15.
Okay, so these straps, like for instance, this 15 here, right? Reading a plan, this is going to be whatever the sheet is. I think it's S2. So S2, detail 15. Top plate splice, right? Let's see if we can find that anywhere, just for the heck of it. There's 13S2. Okay. I don't see 15S2, just out of just cursory search. So, but let's see what 6 on S2 is. Detail 6. Back and forth. Wait, 3. Where's 6? There's no 6. Well, that helps. That helps a lot. On S2, I don't see any detail 6. So what's going on here? Am I just 1, 2, 3, 6, 7? Wow. How about that?
On the right.
Where, here?
Yeah, right
Oh,
there.
yeah, shear wall?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's detail 6. Thanks. Wow. Interesting place to put it. So that tells me what it needs there. It needs a tighten on an existing shear wall. It calls out the plate with a 5/8 tighten. So what it's telling me is up here, right here, that's an existing 2x4 wall. We didn't have to take that wall down. It's an existing wall. It's the plates that are existing. It's an existing shear wall, but it's an existing wall that we sheared on the inside. We had to leave it open on the outside. We had to kind of jump through a few hoops because it was inside on the shear, but we also had to get in there and bore and put in Titans. TIT. It's a Simpson product. They're masonry anchors. We had one around here to show you, but they're pretty cool. There's a lot of different masonry anchors. Titan's rated pretty good for holding power. It's engineered really well, but you bore a hole and then it cuts its own threads into the concrete. It's a pretty big bolt. Anyway, so that's the foundation plan. That's the entry pop out. And then I think pretty much not quite lastly, this should be the framing plan, right? Yeah, framing plan with the engineering that has to do with the framing. And now this is that, but I've been telling you about that living room beam, right? We're going to take the beam out. We got that, showed you that parallelogram beam that I boxed out. And when you guys saw it, when we were doing Rich, you saw a big old 12-inch duct was hung off of it. And there was a Smurf tube up there. And there's a whole lot of stuff run behind it that you couldn't see. And then see, that was the wall that we took out, Alec, that you asked about. And we had framed a wall in front of it, temporarily hold it in 2-foot centers, took that wall out after this beam was hung and attached to its post. And then the existing trusses were hung onto that new beam. Just like that. And the rafters continued. And so there, this actually is a real eave, real zero eave that we did. See these A35s right here? Those are required from plate to block, or yeah, plate to block at every bay. So those freeze blocks they showed you in a house, an A35 clip, it's a small nail-on Simpson clip to angle clip. They're required at every rafter connection and at every block connection too. Required, have to be there, and the inspectors look for them. There's a garage. So anyway, they gave a lot of details. The engineering was done by Patrick Marr, whom I like a lot. He's a really good guy. And he's accessible, which is one, you know. It's amazing how many people aren't, right? Architects and engineers that you're dealing with that aren't accessible because they're busy, but having them be accessible, because you get questions about this stuff and you don't want to make a mistake and have to go back, right? But all these straps, everything that this thing calls out, all of these shear walls and all of these, you know, there's an 18-inch strap and there's a header may be left in place. Okay, there's a flush beam right there. There's a detail for it. Headers, and then there's some big old straps like over here. There's some MSTs. Header. There's something somewhere showing some strapping, but this is what I find is when you deal with county, city building inspectors, you're not just dealing with someone that is supposed to know and apply the codes. You're dealing with a person, just like everything, every interaction you have with anybody in business, it's a person. People do business with people. So when you're working with an inspector, you're working with a person, and they will have their foibles, and they will have their pet peeves, and they will have the things that they are kind of good at and look for. Like some guys will really be on the electrical, and some guys will really be on plumbing. And what I find is that they find that yeah, they can find these things, and then they get really interested and really up to them where they are, and then that's what they look for. And they don't really look for all the other stuff. They have their things that they look for, and that's fine with me. you know, because they can't really look at everything. We can't expect them. We have to build responsibly. We have to build a code. We have to build some things to fall down and get people hurt or hurt other people while they're being built. That's our responsibility. And the inspectors are just supposed to check and see if it went to code, but they can't look at everything. They can't look at every stud, every nail, every screw. They can't. You know, they'll look at specific things, and they'll have their pet things they like to look at. The things that they know, you know, about loads and electrical stuff and heights off the ground for the meter. It's surprising what they have, but Eric. So I'll just finish this. Eric was the inspector that I drew for my final. And the thing about on this job, the thing about this job is my people moved out. They rented a place they hated and had to pay good money for it. And then when they were ready, when the place was getting pretty darn close, and I was still, I think I might have been traveling. I think I'd been out of the country actually, but I was here. They were moving in on Saturday, and I got everything together and called for final inspection on Friday. You don't call them, I have to email. So I had a final inspection on Friday, and then I came in from LA. That's right, I was in LA overnight, and I came in early out of a doctor's appointment early, like 8 or 8:30, and I got in time to meet somebody there. The sign offs in the fire department, and then I had to go over to Montecito Water District to get sewer signed up. Had to do a couple of things and got back just in time, right as Eric had gotten there, our inspector, for the final, right? So I I pride myself in relationships. You know, I just like people and anybody I deal with, I have a relationship with, and it's based on communication. Open, honest, kind, respectful communication solves all problems. Any problems come up between humans, I can solve them with communication, because communication is the essence of relationships, and relationships is all you got with people. Even if it's just your inspector, you still got a relationship with that person. So I liked Eric. He was a helicopter gunship crew chief in the Vietnam War, and so I find that super interesting. I'm always asking him about his experiences, you know, keeping him talking. Don't look at this, keep him talking. Not really, but there were a few things like you got to have landings. You got to have landings. So when a door opens out, you have to have a landing at least out as far as the swing of the door. So a 3-foot door, exterior door that opens out, you got to have a 3-foot deep landing. Stuff like that. Landings weren't in; they were going to happen afterwards. We had a plan for that. There was a few things that weren't done. Very few, but a few, and I knew they weren't done, and I was just hoping to massage them, and sure enough, I did. We talked about, you know, I pointed out a couple of things just to say I'm not trying to hide anything from you, but you know, we want to get them moved in, and I didn't want them moved in for the inspection, because technically they shouldn't be moved in until I get a certificate of occupancy, but I didn't really need one because it's not a brand new house. It was a remodel. Nobody ever said they couldn't live there. So they were going to move in Saturday, whether we got a final or not, and got a final. It was really great. And the stuff that we didn't do, we did, you know, we documented. So, but really, I'll tell you, they got so much going on that if they trust, being inspectors, you have a track record with them, and they trust your integrity, and they trust your subs' integrity, you're going to be doing pretty good. If they don't know you, if they don't know your subs, or if you've done something to erode the trust in your integrity or your word, then you could have a problem with an inspector, and they can make problems. But never forget, you can make problems for them too. Not that anybody wants to make problems for anybody. I also reminds me of this meeting I was in one night, big AA meeting, 200 300 people in an auditorium. There was a speaker on the circuit speaker. And there's a female. And she said, if you're here tonight looking for love, the odds are good. But don't forget, the goods are odd. I thought that was pretty funny. But I can see you guys are still thinking about it. Okay, so I have these here, and I haven't done anything with them because I wanted to show you. So I'm going to show you these, and then we're going to start routing. Just because I've been meaning to do this for weeks, and I can't even remember why. Okay, that's why. So this is that job. I don't know if I think I did talk to you about that job that I went out and looked at with Duncan Brown, where it's going to be, I don't know, probably 15 million. It's a 23% slope that this is being built on. It's an unbelievable place. But I just took some. That's all. That's bedrock. From there down. This is in bed. This is the one I told you. There's a $495,000 spent on the rock claws so far. Some of the footings, excavation, those are number 8 bars. Look at this is just a small sampling of the amount of concrete. This is just starting to get out of the ground in a 3-level place. Has all kinds of moment frames, big 1 1/8 inch steel moment frames. Did I show you the guys these pictures? I don't think I did. I sent them here because I meant to. The same guys that are framing this framed that project that I just showed you the plans of. HR Framing, good framing crew. As you can see, this is just one level. The amount of steel and the amount of framing and the amount of LVLs, it's just over the top, over the top. So much steel. So, but look at the slope, look at the grade. It's a crazy sight. So I got asked to come there to look at this stair, right? Doing that staircase, that curving staircase, because that's what I left doing the work as somebody that specialized in doing curving handrails and staircase systems. And the guy that's building this house, the project manager for Dennis Allen, Duncan Brown, he was the guy that he was working with me. He and I together were doing these curving staircases, and this is some 30 plus, 40 years later, maybe 40 years later. He called me and asked me if I knew anybody who was doing these stairs. I said, well, yeah, I mean, let me look at them. I might want to do them. But I don't want to do them. And one of the reasons I don't want to do them is there's another look at the staircase. Let me turn this. Let's see where to turn it. They give a fair amount of detail, but they're freestanding stringers. It's not attached, so it basically it won't work. So this is a rendering. I thought this would be fun to have, but you saw the pool. But what was being built? What you saw was all this stuff was being built. You saw the ceiling joists for this part of the construction. You saw some of this being built. This is the main living area. This is the pool area. There's an elevator shaft right here. It takes you down, takes you up to the motor court. I mean, it's just unbelievable place. Unbelievable place. Huh. I thought I had. Okay. Okay, so routing. Routing we will go. I showed you the plan on these. We're gonna now do routing post. Probably go outside. We'll see. We'll see if we go outside or not. And put some big chamfers. Put some big chamfers on the ends of beams. This is a chamfer bit. It's a 45-degree chamfer bit. You can buy them 30 degrees as well. It's not a huge chamfer bit. It's a quarter-inch shank, 5/8 cutting. Don't lose that. Just pressing it. But that's the bit. I bought another one yesterday. This is I don't know where this one is. This bit package is, but this is another 45-degree chamfer bit, but considerably bigger. Same 45 degrees. You could basically do the exact same thing on that part of the bit as you can on that. But you can't make that one do this. You make this one do that, but you can't make that one do this, right? Because it's 45, we just cut down to there. We're going to cut the same right there. And this is the bit that I want to use for our beam ends. I want to use a pretty big chamfer, and I'm using a pretty big router. And what I found from routing from the routes that we did the other day is that this is woefully underpowered, but it's okay for what we're going to use it for now, especially since I now have two routers to work with. But the one that I finished is this one here. So this is a full chamfer. Stop 6 inches away and 6 inches away, and I'm going to need a pencil and a speed square. So open that door, please. Go in there, you'll see a blue Makita Skill Soft bag. Yeah, down below. Just grab the speed square out of that. Aluminum speed square. So we're going to stop these six inches before these, gives us plenty. And I like to stop chamfers. Would hate the way if this were the bottom of the post, if that chamfer ran all the way down. I would hate the way it looked. It would make me feel like the base was spinning. So I like to leave the base. This is the feeling I want. I want to have a larger feeling for the base and have the chamfer stop. Plus, I like to look at what stop is, how it leaves it. And they'll all match pretty close. We've stopped them at 6 inches. I don't know. So these are the uprights, right? I don't know that we'll do the edges of the beam. It's possible we will and stop the chamfers before our column caps. But we're going to do the ends of the beams with that large chamfer to really soften that big 6x10. These bits are all bearing. The knives are on bearings so that they bear against the edge. So you don't have to control them with an edge guide or anything. You just let that bearing hit the edge and then go. Now with the bigger chamfers, I will climb cut. So that means I will go against the way the router wants to go and then let it pull me along just to get some meat gone. Or in the case of what we're doing here, before we drop this bit all the way, we're gonna do a small chamfer and then come back and do a bigger chamfer and not take all the meat at once because it's just too much meat. But when I fired up the Festo, which is really the router that's got the juice to do this job, the difference is phenomenal. So I'm gonna show you a little bit of routing with that, and a little bit of routing with that, and then we're just gonna all come up here and start doing, we're gonna route together. And we're gonna get 2 routers going too, so we can really make some sawdust, but this best tool router should have a 2-horse mount motor. Let's see. It's even called that. You can feel it though. I don't know that it's. This has got to have a 2-horse motor. This thing, if it has a 1/2 horse, will be amazing. But the difference in routing with this and even that, which has got a 1.5 horse motor and it's got the 1/2-inch collet. So by the way, router bits are generally going to have a 1/4-inch shank or a 1/2-inch. And virtually every router takes them both, except for maybe some small trim routers. And this is more of a trim router, but you can use it in more cases than just a trim router. It has 2 bases, but these are collets. Collets are what holds the bits in a router. That's an oddball collet. That's like a 3/8 collet. I've never seen a collet that size. That's a 1/2-inch collet, which would fit that bit and any other 1/2-inch shanks we have, which we have a fair amount of 1/2-inch shanks. And then the collet that's in there is a 1/4-inch collet, and it takes a shank like that. It's only 1/4 inch.
Hey, Rodney,
Yes.
what is the cost of that best tool router?
Okay, I was gonna get to that too.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding me. So I don't know, but I can tell you this. Cordless, pretty good router for edge routing. Not a big heavy router, which is always good to have a bigger, heavier router. This is a couple $100. It's a couple $100 is it's pretty jazzy, you know, and it's got 2 batteries and all that stuff. This thing was probably $150,000.
Right.
And $1,200 for the dust extractor. So it's almost $2,500, which is considerably more if it's paying $150 for the router, right? The difference is most routers are relatively underpowered. In my estimation, this is anything but underpowered. This is made by Germans in Germany. They make almost the best machines and have historically. This not only has dust extraction, and it has a piece that clamps in here that captures the dust and the wood chips, but the tool doesn't plug into 110. The tool plugs in to the dust extractor. The dust extractor plugs into 110, and it's on auto, so that when I fire up this tool, fires up the dust extractor. Can't have one without the other. So routering happens from left to right, on the front of an edge you're routing, and if you're routing on the back of it, routes from left to right. So you might see, and we went over clockwise and counterclockwise, clockwise and counterclockwise, etc. Just so you can get that out of your head. You're facing the work, it's left to right. If it's on the back of the work, it's right to left, and that's the way the router's meant to go. So let's take, why don't you back up, and I'll just go ahead and do a left to right, and I'll just do a pass and show you. We'll get with this one. Mark. It's so hard to see this thing. It's really hard to see this thing. So, I think that's exactly where I want to go. Exactly. So I'll take the router to there. Okay, so if I'm using the fest tool, I'm going 2 3/8. All right. Remember that? 2 3/8. Okay. 2 3/8 should stop me right on my 6. So with the fest tool, this is how I'm routing it. And the thing is, you need to keep your base flat, right? You don't want to rock your base. This would be a better way to route, but these guys are a little bit off. So you just gotta lock it in right here. So all portable power tools have a lock to peg the trigger. All portable power electric tools have a lock to peg the trigger. So you turn the trigger on, press the lock, and press the trigger. And when you touch the trigger, it touches, okay? I'm going to drop this a little bit. I want it to cut a little bit more for me. And this is a plunge router, so it's a little different than how I would drop a router that wasn't a plunge router. And it's how I would drop it to cut more. This, I just got to bring it down a little bit more and then lock it in. Where a regular router would be a little different. And all of these are plunge routers. So I'm just going to take a little more meat so that second pass won't be so gnarly. Okay, that's what it's like to route with this. Get a sense of how I'm doing it. And this is what it's like to route with this. Now this guy, always have the Makita looking at you, not the upside down Makita looking at you. Have the Makita looking at you, and you turn it on by unlocking it, which will turn the light on, and then you can hit the power. And this is how this comes out. I can climb cut. Away from some of the turns. And finish it. Now I can see, I can watch the bit do that. I can't really see it there, so that's why I got a 2 3/8 index mark to watch the edge of that. Follow that?
Yeah.
And so what we're gonna do is, everybody's gonna get a chance to route. So I want somebody to come here, Daniel, and route to halfway, stop, and then take that and route, and then everybody is going to get a chance to do some routing. Okay, and let's just see Daniel's technique, see how he does. Yeah, so remember, you're on the back side, you're going to start on the right and move to the left. When you're on the front side of the work, you're going to start on your left and you're going to move to the right. And what happens is it's how the router revolves, right? The router's bit and cutting edges are cutting this way, right? And so as you move it, that's the way it's cutting. When you move it this way, it's actually cutting to the back of the cut, and it kind of wants to take you with it. And that's what's called a climb cut. And that'll take a lot of meat. You got to really hang on to the router. You don't want it to get away from you. But you'll climb cut and not hit your bearing to take a little less meat if your work is starting to splinter. But a really good sharp router knife, which we have here, we should be able to do, get these routes done, no sweat. So go ahead. Those guys, you don't really have to climb cut. We're not taking that much meat. You can start that baby and just pull it to about the halfway point, and then pick this guy up and try that. Cool. Now, when we're roughing these out, right? We're roughing this out because this is not our finished chamfer. This is not our finished bit. So we can pause. We can do all kinds of stuff that we wouldn't want to do with our finished router cut. Because when your last cut, your bearings contact, and you're cutting the last of a big chamfer like this one. You want to keep that constant rate of feed. You never want to stop because you might burn the wood, right? But in the stuff we're doing now, you can stop, you can go back over, you can do all kinds of stuff. Okay. Try that. Yeah, try those two. And you're gonna get a little bump there, but that's okay. Put it down. Put down on there and make sure you're not gonna hit anything, which you were. Okay, sit in the middle. Now you won't hit anything. Start it up and then bring it to your work. Go ahead and take that. When it's straight like that, go ahead and take it to there. So what do you think about that? How does this feel compared to that?
This one just glides a lot easier.
Glides, it just feels
Yeah.
like it's
Especially for
heavier.
that knot right there.
It's a heavier motor. Okay, so let's get somebody
It
else.
looks
up
like
here.
the pestle kind of chunked it a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit right there.
Yeah,
I don't know
it
what
did.
it was.
No, it's what it is the material.
Uh,
It hit a splinter and it splintered it, but believe me, that's gonna go away.
Yeah.
It's gonna go away. So we routed those two, so let's go ahead and flip it. Okay, don't anybody help.
You're so strong, Rodney.
All right, so Alec, you're close, you're close. Go ahead and do, was that first? Yeah. And go ahead and start. Go down there on the left, yeah.
Oh,
Do you need to mark that?
Yeah, do we need?
Oh,
to
yeah,
mark
we
it?
need to mark that. Yeah. They say 2 3/8 fast, right? So 6 inches. 2 and 3 is passed.
That was with the festival one, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's for the festival, yeah, so
so this. is
that
where
you
we're-
can watch.
So this
Yeah.
is where we're finishing, right?
Correct, and you're gonna start here with that, right? And you can watch that guy, you can start it over here and then you can kind of climb it back and just try to keep a hold of it.
Hey, he didn't mark that end.
Yeah, you remember, right? Was it six?
Six,
and then
you marked the
six, and then 2 and 3.
I think 2 and 3 is from the line.
Yeah, I think it's 2 and 3. It's from.
Oh, About the 2 and 3 raised too?
Yeah, from the line, right? Not the end. Right.
Yes, from the line.
That should be it then.
And that guy, yeah, you can start it anywhere. Then go back, Alex. Run through that. You know, that. Remember, this is the first pass. We're going to be doing. So I like this. I like having you guys do this from forward position. This is really how you should be routing. It's the best way to route. All right, next. Who next?
I'll go.
Okay. Start with that one. And wear glasses, please. You. And yeah, and so Alex, you can watch that guy. You can watch that big. Start it here and then kind of watch it climb to there and have it start right there. Correct.
How did that festival feel? It just looks like it's choppier.
Yeah, it's a little bit, feels a little bit heavier. The Peter one's nice, I think we can kind of see a little bit. It's good to have the-
It looks like it's feeling a lot smoother and flat.
The water's doing the exact same job. Look at that half versus this half. No difference. One's deeper than yours. So that doesn't make clear. No, sure. There's no difference at all. I guess it's just how yeah. Hey, Alex.
Put that down and tie your strings. Yeah, and I gotta get this off.
Good call, Frank.
Yeah, that was good. I looked at that at first and I thought, no,
I know. I
you'll
did
never
the
get it
same
down that
thing.
far, but then you get lean a little farther. Yeah, that's good. Good deal.
Yeah, take it to about here.
And then abandon that and check out the festival. This is all housekeeping, right? We'll start down there. It's all right. No big deal. Good work, though. Good work. Love you. Put that boy over. That's all done, okay. So we'll need to get this one. Okay, so let's do, well, we still got some already do, so, yeah, go ahead and do yourself, because I want a bunch of people to feel this initial pass. So do, start here, right? Start with the small one, and you can watch it do it, right? And then I'll give you a line, and actually just go about a quarter of the way, and then use the festoon for a quarter, and I'll get somebody else to do the Makita and finish with the festoon, okay? Who's that pencil?
They're on.
Remember that we're roughing. So we're not, we don't care all that much how this looks. We probably do want to get that to go. I take that Makita and watch it and get it to go right dead there. Do that with a Makita. We're roughing. We're taking a pass that we're going to eliminate this. The routing that we're doing will never be there again. So you don't have to be as careful as you want to be.
Perfect.
take a 12-minute break until 11:15. We'll come back here and we'll do some more routing, and who knows if we'll even finish routing. Plowing through that myself or something like that. We've got time, so take a break. Everybody to break at least 10 minutes an hour. So we're gonna break until that thing says 15 after, should give you about, my watch says 10 minutes, that thing will give you 12 minutes. Then we'll come back and we'll do some more routing. We'll get a feel for this router.
Rodney, I gotta head out early. Gotta
What
go
time?
Right now.
Later. You didn't get it. You got to route. Yeah.
I did, yeah.
I can tell. 'Cause you were so-
All right, I'll see you next time.
Tell Josh, I said,
Yeah.
tell John, I said, I probably won't see you next Wednesday. I'm not sure if we're gonna do Saturday.
I gotta go pick up Assessor right now and take him to this kitchen remodel that we're doing. I need to have him help me pull some measurements on this wood trap. I was gonna show you this scale drawing.
My goal was just.
So
If
we're
I start
essentially
there,
doing
like
a big shroud for the
more safe.
Yeah.
and this is where the ductwork is coming up for the
I look from it.
Right.
It was a lot easier to.
she
see what I was
doesn't
doing.
want the client doesn't
That
want
one
the
I
shroud to
That's
come
what
up
he marked
now.
it.
This is where it's coming up
Right.
in the wall right now, and she doesn't want this to go up.
So this is the lid?
Well,
the ceiling?
this is, no, the ceiling's pretty high
Even higher,
beyond
okay.
this, but essentially she doesn't, she wants the shroud to come up 6 to 12 inches above the crown. She doesn't want it to come up 2.5 feet
Right,
above.
okay,
above it.
yeah.
So Trying to figure out if we can
Well-
move this.
Well, or what about just chase it so it's centered?
Well, the problem about this is sitting, in the attic. This is sitting right on the drywall and right below the powder room ceiling. It's sitting on the drywall of the powder room ceiling
Okay.
behind it. And then right here is a pantry. So she doesn't want to drop the ceiling of the powder room and push it in. So we're trying to figure out if we can move it to the pantry and drop it down from the pantry to the shroud.
Get in somewhere where you're not. So they're good.
Yeah. So, and then this is a single-sided shear wall. So, this is OSB.
It's the same thing.
So is this a section looking down to the wall then? Plan view down to the wall, and this is the elevation? Is that what I'm looking at?
Well, you're looking at the elevation, and then this is the height that the ductwork is coming through the wall. In the original kitchen, there was.
So this ceiling is even higher than this.
Yeah, it's a lot higher than this,
Huh.
but she just doesn't want this to be too big.
Well, I can kind of see it. So is this where all the bigger this is gonna get, and this is gonna get a crown on top of it?
No, I think this is just gonna be square, and it's gonna be finished with Venetian plaster. And this is probably gonna be a little bit higher. This is probably gonna.
God, wouldn't it be nice to have this be wider and have a little larger crown return on it?
Yeah, I think she's gonna do a crown return, but I don't think this is probably gonna go maybe, a foot higher than the crown. I don't know if she wants to do a crown on the top. So. but,
Oh, well.
Yeah.
And so, don't you agree that by drawing it to scale, you do all kinds of things? One is you get to see what it actually could look like proportionally. And then it also allows you to go, okay, well, right?
Yeah.
Once you plot it, you can build on paper with a paper, and a pencil, and eraser, and scale rule, and those things. You can actually build things. So granted, they're not in the real world, but if you did it right to scale on paper, you can even measure your stuff to scale. And just do a couple of stuff for that. And it allows you to figure stuff out rather than start building and go, oh, it's like, this way you can figure it out like we did with this relatively simple shape structure, right? Simple, 4 posts, 2 headers, 9 rafters, 16 blocks, but not easy. Simple. But by drawing on it, like I know, I'm just, okay, we're gonna cut these at 6A, we're gonna cut these, I had all that worked out rather than, oh, you know what I mean? Drawing. And if you learn to draw, then you can read plans. You can't draw plans without learning to read, because you're gonna read your own things that you're drawing. Right? So if you understand how to draw, then you will understand how to read plans, and how to read plans is what you wrote out of this game.
You
See you
and
around
Miss
after
Kathy, so-
class. No, I'll be there. after.
Okay, cool.
See you guys in the afternoon. Have a good day.
Later, take care.
Oh, did I pause? I didn't.
That one, I think they adjusted the. How do you adjust the depth again, Rodney,
I'll
or?
show you in just a second.
Alrighty. Yeah.
Um,
You can leave that, but
Yeah. Although, now try this one. Take that off you. Get this one to try. Love this.
Harder to see.
Yeah, it is. So don't even worry about seeing it because it doesn't matter. This is just our first cut. That's it. And you can run it fairly quickly along this. Don't be afraid when you're operating these tools to, because we're roughing. We're doing this, we're taking some meat and we're not gonna leave this, so you can go back and. Clean it up. You can move along, so let's go ahead and we'll rock from the backside. Go ahead and start with this one, right? I'll give you that 2 3/8. Oops. On. 2 3/8. 1 2 3/8. Right? 3/8. Okay, so you're gonna be doing the backside, right? And so it means you're gonna be going this way. And then go ahead and start with that. That's a good one to start with, because then you'll get a feel for the more powerful later. And you should be able to watch your bit. Do that. And then where's Alexandria? You're next.
right to left.
Yes. Yeah, right to left on the backside. So when you're routing, you're gonna find the most ergonomic place to hold this routing for you. And you want to feel centered, you want to feel like you're controlling it, but you want to feel like you're keeping that thing flat, right? What purchase you have. And so sometimes I like to turn it. So like if I'm routing this way, I might route like this.
I like that. Rather than just feels a little different. So, but as long as it's on there,
Now try that one. Yeah. Remember, you don't want it to hit the wood first. You start off. Okay, good. You don't have to go back and forth too much, but remember, we're roughing out. We don't really. I mean, remember, for roughing out, when we do that final pass, that's when we need to get really careful. So let's get somebody else up, Alexander. Yeah, I think we're next in line. That one. Those. And we'll let you finish with this one. Nope, other way. Just like that, yeah. And then that's where you're gonna use it. When that light comes on, it's now ready to be turned on. So just watch this. Okay, from Snowden's and Vernon, see the kind of chamfer you're getting? You're not getting that chamfer. The reason you're not getting that chamfer is because you're tilting it. You're tilting it. Let me go for a second. You're tilting it like this. So you're getting, so you need to just be as flat as you can on that thing, and then you'll get the whole chamfer. Start from back here. Okay, you got? That's it. That's it. Perfect. Perfect.
Try that video.
Just be careful that's off there, doesn't start up on it, because it'll give you a bit of a jolt to your hands. Yeah, that's like that. Perfect.
There's one back to here too.
I probably didn't measure two. I didn't measure 2 3/8. Looks like I measured 1 3/8. I actually measured 2 3/8.
I think originally you had planned to only go 5 inches up the
It wasn't it. It was one, I did 1 and 3. It's not 2 and 3. It's 1, 2, and 3, 8. So it's really, so there. Although that, oh, that one you eyeballed. That one somebody eyeballed. So go to that line, that edge. Oops. And lifting it way up. It's kind of tilting this way. So it takes a while to get a sense of. Good job. Excellent job. Okay, who's next? Step right up. Okay. I'll have to start with the back. So you're gonna start this way, start with that guy. And let me give you some marks. Inches. Do you know why women traditionally make such lousy carpenters? They've been told this is 6 inches in their whole life. Yeah, I couldn't help myself, sorry. Wanted to help myself, but then I thought, no. you can't help
That's
yourself.
on record too now. 'Cause
Hey,
it's the recording.
It's fine, it's a good joke. Didn't say any 4-letter words. Nothing, nothing even remotely resembling.
I'll vouch for you, so
Bad girl.
someone else cancel you.
Is it better at like an angle shit?
Yeah, that's the way I like to do it. And then, so start it up, make sure that it's not hitting wood, start it out while it's sitting flat, and then just work it in, and then that's the line you're gonna be watching it. Stop that, right? Now you have to.
Really close to. That was a very good job.
Pick up that fence tool, give that a whirl. Yeah, 2 horsepower. You hear that? Did you guys hear that?
What it sound like?
Something. You did a good job. Next, Matthias Mo. Okay, let's get you started with this one. So.
Let's get the first one. That's very smooth out of it with that. Okay.
But like anything, you get a sense and a feel for any of these hand tools because they are hand tools. It's your hands. It's not just a push the button and go do this, right? It's how your hands guide them all the way. You can guide them in the right way, you can guide them in the wrong way. Very good. All right, who hasn't read it? Okay, man. You ready? Start out with that guy. And let me give you, I'll give you that line.
Probably feels a little breezy today.
So you can
Extra
watch
breezy
that
for
back.
you.
Kind of start ahead of it.
I totally forgot about the whole.
Let's start it. It's not gonna hit that. Right now. Right
Those
now.
are the real hit the paint.
They are.
I like them. I like them.
Perfect. Now, Joe Kennedy in the right direction. That's good. You're keeping that nice and flat. That's really good. You can move faster. You're good. Stop that. Try to test you. Doesn't it feel different, doesn't it? I mean, you can both feel these machines in your hands whirring and cutting material, but the festival, besides the noise and the vacuum coming on, it's still just a whole different.
Who hasn't? I think you have pushed it yet.
I've routed before.
Anybody, has anybody not routed that hasn't pushed? Let's let where's Jose? Let's let Jose go before Frank. Frank's routed before. This would be a no brainer for him. So Frank's router before because of what he's wearing.
No, it's because I've got no brain, right? It's in my brain.
There's that too. So, but stop for just a second. The two guys are walking their dogs in the park. They meet. It turns out they're old buddies. They haven't seen each other for like a couple of decades. And one guy has his Chihuahua. The other guy has his German Shepherd. The guy they start yucking it up, catching up a little bit. The guy with the German Shepherd says, "Hey, let's go across the street to this coffee shop. We'll catch up on, have a cup of coffee and we'll catch up on old times." And the guy with the Chihuahua says, "Oh man, that sounds great, but we got the dog, so there's probably a better time." The guy says, "Don't worry about that. Just follow my lead." So he goes in first, the guy with the shepherd, and the hostess comes up to him and says, "Sir, we can't seat you. You have a dog." He says, "That's my seeing eye dog." She says, "Oh, seats him." So the other guy walks in behind him with the Chihuahua, and the hostess approaches him and says, "Sir, we can't seat you. You have a dog." And he says, "That's my seeing eye dog." And she says, "Sir, that's a Chihuahua." And he says, "They gave me a Chihuahua?" Okay, let's go.
I tried to pull I wanted to bring my dog on the airplane.
Yeah,
I was like, "Mom, I'm just gonna make him a service dog."
yeah,
And now,
we did that, but now they made it a lot tougher. Emotional service dogs, they're not buying anymore. So you're in the front. Yeah, you're in the front.
Should he be going from the other direction?
Yeah, left.
I'm sorry. Did I have him go this way again?
Yeah.
You should be going that way. Just watch it. Watch it. You can start before, then you can watch it climb to that line. I can't believe I've done that twice.
What's the lock one first?
There you go. There you go.
Good job, man. Okay, try to test on him.
So here's the difference between a corded and a cordless. Yes, running from left to right. Let's get talk to you for a little bit and then we'll get us out of here.
You want to do the final passes?
Well, maybe you and I'll do them, or maybe I'll do them, or maybe we'll do them. So I'll do that.
Okay, I'd like to help if you're down.
Because I'd like to, wouldn't mind just ripping through.
Yeah.
But what I will show you, though, I will show you, before I rip through those and do all the chamfers, I will show you how we do, how we'll finish that chamfer out to get it to be the wide chamfer. And you'll see, I think, I hope, that you gotta really be, really careful. You gotta be really careful when you're using large router bits. And you gotta be careful, remember, or no, you guys weren't involved in that, but in the little router clinic on Tuesday night, I think, but. So that big chamfer bit, that big honking bit in that 2 horsepower punch router, it does stuff like this. That's the size chamfer it'll do. You see, I never really finished the chamfer because I've decided in playing around with that big chamfer, when I do the end grain is way tougher to route than edge grain. End grain's harder and it's just splinters. It's a whole other ballgame to route. So we'll do the end grain. We might get some splintering like that, that I'll have to deal with. I might do some slight chamfers before, but I'm going to be playing around a little bit with some of my cutoff ends and taking very small passes and dropping in small passes, taking a little less meat because it has a tendency to really work and really wants to bind. And so you have to be careful. You have to know your material, know what you're routing. Fir is not necessarily all that hard. It's also not all that soft. It's considered a hardwood, by the way. It's not considered a softwood. It's considered a hardwood. Believe it or not, pine is considered a hardwood, which is kind of amazing to me. But I won't get into that right now. Suffice to say that different woods have different properties in how they machine, how they cut the saws, how they joint, how the surface plane interacts with them, but especially edge routing. You have firs have a tendency to splinter. They're fairly open-grained wood, and open-grained woods have a tendency to splinter, and they're not as hard or as dense as, say, red oak, white oak, mahogany, teak, maple, birch, things like that. Poplar is really open-grained, but it's soft enough it hardly ever splinters. Pine, if you got sharp knives, and that's the thing, a dull tool is a dangerous tool. Have you heard that before? There are certain udisms that you'll hear that you might get asked about as a bonus question. You might get asked about it on the test, but one of my udisms is a dull tool is a dangerous tool, but that's was before me. That's like a measure. Good carpenters measure twice, cut once. I say measure 3 times, cut once. But here's one that is all my own, and that is, if you can draw it, you can build it. So if you can draw it and you can make it work on paper, then you can build it. I subscribe to that philosophy. So when you get a router, when you start buying tools, if you don't have a router, you're going to see a lot of routers. They're going to do a lot of things. Buying a plunge router is probably the way to go, because then you have the option of using a router with a fixed base, because you can always fix the base of the plunge router by tightening it at whatever depth you've got a plunge, or you can use it as a plunge router. And there are a lot of uses for plunge routers. Once you understand the router and get comfortable with the router and get comfortable with the adjustments of the router and how to use the plunge, you will find it can be really good for you. For instance, I could have set that thing up. So because it has stops on it has 3 different stops on the plunges. I could have set it up to plunge at 1 depth and done all that routing at 1 depth, and then turn it and allow it to plunge at another depth and done all that little bit more of the chamfering, and then finished it at the 3rd depth. The thing of it is when you plunge, you have to also hold it down on the spring when you plunge. Plunge routing is more for mortising and for starting on the flat surface of the board and then plunging in, like you might do a mortise in the middle of a field, or stop dados, or some kind of stopped route. But the plunge router gives you the option to do a fixed base routing as well. And the beauty of that Makita, besides that it's cordless and it has extra battery, and Makita's kind of they're leading the industry right now, just virtually everything they're doing. Their box is a sustainer. The box that comes in, that green box, is the exact same box as the Festool boxes. So they lock on top of each other. So you can get wheels for them to roll them around. They snap they come up above the box and they'll snap onto the bottom of the next box. You can snap all your boxes together. You can snap them. They snap on top of a Festool dust extractor. So they're very handy. Usually there's lots of good cutouts for them. And in the Festool box, there's really great cutouts, which I haven't figured out what goes where yet. Just a few of the things, because I can't remember because I haven't used it in so long. But there's a very significantly shaped cutout in the bottom. It's for the arbor wrench, and it's not there. How do you lose an arbor wrench that goes in a cutout? That's I can't believe it. So it's not there. So I ordered a new arbor wrench, but it's a nice thing. You get a Festo tool, you not only get the the most well-engineered tool made today that will last the longest and do the most efficient and best and accurate cutting, shaping, whatever you're doing with it. But it comes in a box, so it's protected. And in that box are all these things that go with it that have their place. And for somebody like me, who's a Virgo, borderline OCD, and all the other things that contribute to me being the way I am, I need things to be in the place they go. And if they're not, it's a problem for me. So in other words, if my sunglasses, if they're not in that little thing in my Lexus or that little thing in my Chevy, then I don't know where they are. Literally, unless they're on my head, I don't know where they are. So I have to be really careful about putting stuff back. And tools is even more important because you have all these little things. So put your tools back in the proper place. I noticed we have so many router bits that I'm gonna, I really want to do a box clinic. I don't know when I'll have a chance to do it, but I want to get together because I found that it's really easy for me to lecture. It's the easiest thing I do because I'm fairly gregarious and if you haven't noticed, I'm fairly loquacious and I have a decent vocabulary. So I like to lecture and I'm actually pretty good at it and I've done it for a long time. Public speaking is part of my deal. I have found that most students like to see the stuff happen, if not actually make it happen, or at least we all get together and make stuff happen. Like when we have projects, that's like the most fun for everybody. So trying to get some projects going, like our tiny house is a fantastic project. And hopefully Jim and Pat and I can take the time to do what we need to do to get it to the place where we can start working on it again. But in the meantime, what was I going to say about that? I was going to say something about that. I will try, the box making thing. The box making thing I will deviate from how I do things. And I'll have to do a fair amount of deviation because if you look at the adult ed shop, the non-credit shop over there, Steve Sheftick's shop, who's the guy I bought my building from in 1988, and I evicted him the day I bought the building, but he wanted to be evicted. He won $6 million in the lottery, by the way, Steve Sheftick. You know that? $6 million in the lottery. The guy that teaches the adult ed woodworking class, Steve Sheftick, really nice guy. Actually, he's kind of a not nice guy. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. I totally take that back. He is a really good guy, and he's been around a long time. But he's got set up for people to build things, build little things, and make birdhouses. We don't. We have a classroom that when I got here, we didn't have the surfacer, the jointer, the shaper, that Horton Santa. We had the table saw. And so I said, no, this is a shop, man. We got to have some stationary power tools. He said, okay, buy what you want. So, well, there's no place to put them. Go, well, we'll get, rollers. We'll put them on rollers so we can roll them out when we want them. So that's kind of what we're stuck with. And so if we do box making, I'll have to figure out how I could do it, how I can bring along everybody to make their own boxes, because that's what I'd like to do. And I did that with a non-credit high school class I taught a few summers ago, 2 or 3 summers ago. I had 20 14-year-old kids for a summer class, and it was an interesting class. It wasn't the back to work class, but it was every day in the morning. It was every day. It was a 4-week class every day. And we had projects to do, but I did make a box for them, show them box making, did a rabbited edge box and made 20 boxes. I basically made the boxes. I let them do some nailing. They did nailing, with a gun nail, pneumatic nail, and I let them do sanding. Obviously, they could sand to their heart's content. I tried to get them to do as much as possible, but to be able to get the boxes made in the time we had allotted, I had to come in there for a couple of days and just mill multiple hundreds and hundreds of parts. So I'm going to hope to avoid that, but it would be cool to make some boxes because I've got to make some box, or we might just make together make a really, really nice box and make it for all of our assorted router bits. So you get a sense of, in the box making art, because it is an art. Just all the stuff you can do, the boxes you can make to house a tool, house bits, house jewelry, all kinds of stuff. Boxes work. Any questions today? Questions about routing or yes,
I'm
Matthias?
gonna let you know, I'm gonna be gone the March 20th to 23rd. I know we have Saturday class that.
Actually, you're in luck. You're going to be gone over spring break.
Perfect.
Yeah,
I
you
have no
lucky
idea
frog.
what it's gonna be.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that our spring break is okay. Yeah, so it's basically the 20th to the 27th. So you're going to be gone over spring break. Here we are on Saturday the 5th. So next week we'll have Wednesday. Jim will probably do Wednesday with you. And then I was thinking of the 12th for erection of the shade structure, but I'm thinking now that we maybe we might keep chamfering and messing around and have it happen the 19th. I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to do, is we'll have a Saturday lab at the school, and we'll be bolting all this stuff together and getting things up. And then we'll have spring break. And then what we don't finish, we'll come back on that Saturday. So we'll have a Wednesday, the 30th of March, and then the Saturday, the 2nd of April. We'll have that. Shoot. We'll finish the shade structure. And then I'm gone the 16th to the 20th. My wife is gone the 25th through May. No, is that possible? She's gone. My wife is gone the 25th of March to the 15th of April. That ain't right. How is that right?
3 weeks.
Yeah, that's a long time. It's exactly 3 weeks. But anyway, so Matthias, that you won't have anything to worry about because it will be your spring break. And I'll fill you in on the stuff that you need to know, and I'll send you guys an email. What did I send you an email? What did I say? I'd send you an email about, let you know.
The materials for drafting.
For drafting, because I would like to have a class for that for you guys, because I do that for pretty much all my classes, because I found that the majority of students that I have don't know how to draw a scale. And a fair amount of students don't know how to read plans to scale and understand scale rules. So you may not be in that group. You may understand scale rules and read plans. Some of you may have had me in another class and had that, but we'll do it, and I will get you to a place where you know how to draw a scale, and you will know how to read plans that are scaled. And that will serve you. Now, I mean, we're not going to go like my blueprint reading, which is 116. If you ever get a chance to take that, I teach a blueprint reading class, which is probably my favorite class. Between that and measuring and calculating, I really like those classes. But this is a fun class.
We're down on this.
No, this is, well, I've never taught this class before. This has been Jim's bailiwick. 111, 110 and 111 has been Jim's bailiwick since I started. And it's just been this last year where Jim has been getting a little burned out or too much work, has asked me to split the class with him. So this is the first time I've ever done 111. And it's also a really fun class. It's also a big scattershot. And what's part of it that makes it fun is that we get to touch on a lot of things. And the way I figure Jim is doing it is he's doing 110 as is the basically introduction 1 through 12 in the book, foundation through framing, layout, foundation up through roof framing. And then for 111, we get into the systems in the house, mechanical systems, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, insulation, drywall, finish work too, cabinetry, all that stuff. We're going to talk about all this stuff because it's all synergistic in building. It's all, nothing exists in a vacuum. Everything is connected. And in a building, it's obvious to me that everything is connected. And you virtually can't change one thing without it affecting something else. Everything you change or make different, you have to take a look at how it's connected, what it changes. Because it's usually not just the one thing. And changes are a part of building. Right? They're in the, and I've done literally hundreds, maybe into thousands of jobs. And I don't think I've ever done a job that didn't have a change. At least one change. Even the simplest of jobs, they get a change. They get somebody who says, well, could we do it this way? And typically, most homeowners that you build for, not so much commercial, because commercial is a little different ballgame. But when you're dealing with residential and with people, for the most part, they don't really, the general public, unless they've got some training, they don't really understand plans. So they can look at their plans and they can get a sense of it, right? For varying degrees, homeowners will have a sense of plans and what the plans say, but rarely do homeowners really understand. Typically, when you get a place out of the ground and framed, then your homeowners really understand what the plan said. And then they go, oh my gosh, I had no idea that it was going to look like that. Could we do this and could we do that? And oh my gosh, we're actually standing here now. Wouldn't that window be better served over here? And could we make I'm seriously, it's unending, the changes. How many change? Oh, Alex gone, but on that job that Alex working on, they're into 120, 140 changes now, maybe 240 changes from the original plans. That job, that slope job, they're well over 100 changes. They'll be into 200 and 300 changes. And changes are important. Super important. It's super important that you document all changes for yourself so you can get paid for it. Now, they rarely are, but a change can go the other way. You can take something out where you owe the customer money that there's a credit, but typically they're not that way. Typically, changes cost your owner more money because they've added or deviated from something. And so there's a cost involved. And if you're doing the work and you're encountering changes, which you will, I urge you to, from the very beginning, to document your changes and get them up front and get the costs up front. So that when they say, well, we don't really like the window there, we wanted to move 2 studs bays over. And before you do it, and charge them for it afterwards, because that's one way to do it. I mean, I've done that a lot. Go, look, if you want us to keep going, not stop the process and get the pricing in place for this, I could document that change, get you to sign the change order, and it will do a T&M. So so it'll be a T&M change, and on my guy's time card, he'll have the CO or T&M. He'll delineate the time he took that was to do that. That was outside the scope of the work. Different than the scope, change the scope of the work, and any materials, those will be labeled too, so that you'll get a T&M, copies of the time card and copies of the material invoice with markup to justify the cost of that change order. That's in my it's ideal because you get paid for what you do and it's up front, your owner knows, but above that, anytime you can come up with a price, it's the best way to go. Because then your work is done. So how much to move that window over there? I'm gonna take my gun. Doesn't change the shear. All right, we'll do it for $400. Change order right there, change order pad, $400 change order, or you wrote it down, you give them the change order, you email it to them that night and they sign it. And you get $400 for that change order. And it doesn't really matter what it costs me to pay my guy. If it costs me $100 to pay my guy or $500, at this point, I don't even care. I gave them a price, stuck to the price, my work is done. Now go do it, right? And the change order is logged and they get billed with the change order. If I say, okay, yeah, we'll change that and we'll do T&M, and I've got to keep track of it, and I've got to make a note, and I've got to go, did you pull the time cards for that? Yeah, remember the change orders? Did you look for any T&M stuff? Or the guys that, did you not put that as a change order on your thing? Did you not put, I told you that was NIC, which means not in contract, right? So all my guys had to write, they had to write specifically what they did that was NIC and put NIC in bold and or highlight it so that when they came across my desk or whoever's desk, they could look for the NIC stuff. There's so much paperwork and you want to get paid for that stuff, man. You want to have a good relationship with your owner. You want them to know up front what their costs are. You don't want to hit them with these costs after the fact. Everybody hates that because it's, you know, they're always like, that much. But you want to get paid. When the scope of work changes, then it should be noted. And the additional work, if it takes additional work or the modified work or whatever, if it costs you more than the original, you should get paid for it, right? Because originally you bid putting the window in there. You didn't bid taking the window out, or say the window's not in. You didn't bid reframing it, taking it apart and moving the header over and having a guy spend 2 or 3 hours reframing the opening. You didn't bid that. You bid it one way, put that dang window in. So yeah, you want to be a nice guy. And oh, it's a small change. It's my guy. You know, your guy costs you for 2 or 3 hours. You can get a good carpenter laborer to do that. Maybe. It's only costing you maybe 20 now. Cost you $80. On top of that, it costs you another 40 for his comp and your overhead. So it costs you $120. That's not a bad present to give an owner, right? $120 on a $500,000 job. But those $120 add up. Get paid, man. Get paid for your work. And as employees, you don't have as much of a problem. You should be logging your hours and turning in time cards and getting paid for every hour you work. And you should get paid time and a half for every minute you work over 8 or any minute you work over 40. That's the law. So if your guy says we don't pay overtime, he's breaking the law. Now, the way I used to get around some of that is that I said, okay, we're going to work over 8. If the job demands we work over 8, if I haven't got built into my job or as a change order, fine, you want it done, you want us to work over hours, and we're going to have to pay time. I have to pay time and a half. That means you got to pay me more. So if you haven't done that, and the job demands some overtime, I would just say, stop your time card at 8 hours and keep a separate time card for your overtime, and I'll pay you cash, under the table cash, which is also illegal.
You know it's recorded, right?
That's it. Did I say illegal? Anyway, it's after the fact. Statute of limitations is up on that, for sure. And it's a small thing, and it's not like your employer doesn't pay you $30 an hour for that 1 hour overtime you worked over on a 9-hour day. If you don't get 30 an hour instead of your 20 an hour, nobody's going to bust them. Nobody's going to come down and bust them. And you're not going to go to the labor board either, unless you want to lose your job. He can't fire you for taking to the labor board, but he's not going to like it. No, boy, you just say the word labor board. I can't even believe I can even say those 2 words. So bad. Labor board is so bad. I've had my feet held to the fire. And the labor board is so bad and it's so weighted to labor that if you're an employer and you go in front of the labor board, they all tell you, just pay, just pay. Don't fight it. Don't, even though those guys weren't even on your payroll, just pay. Seriously. The labor board is unbelievable. It's also the greatest tool you got. If you're getting messed over by somebody you work for, the labor board we'll take care of you. If you're really getting messed over. But I would give your guy a chance before you go to labor board. Say, look, I'm thinking about going to labor board. What? How much did you say, oh, you? I probably won't see you Wednesday. You may or may not see you Saturday because next week's Jim's week. Good time. You're a great group. Thanks for coming today. Enjoy your Saturday. And, you're on.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm thinking about going home to take my dog out, but it's like a 15-minute drive, so I don't know.
Pat's gonna be over here. He's not gonna, he's over there, right? He's doing the door test.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be over there.
Like rally.
Yeah, I'll do some routing with you.
Let's just see what we get it down to. Just
Yeah.
back it up. Okay, hey, Alex, see you next week. Hey, bud. Let's see. View, gallery. Move pin. This is the gallery. Okay.